There's a place in America where the most dangerous people on Earth live. A place so secret, so hidden, that most people don't even know it exists. It sits in the middle of nowhere, in the Colorado mountains, surrounded by nothing but emptiness and silence. This place has a name, ADX Florence. Inside these walls are men who have done things so terrible, so violent, that America decided they could never, ever be around other people again. Not even other prisoners. These are the men who tried to blow up buildings, the men who killed other inmates, the men who attacked guards, the terrorists, the gang leaders, the worst of the worst. And in this prison, there's something strange happening. Something that reveals just how different life is when you're locked away from the world forever. It's about food, the meals they eat. Because in a place where you can't see the sun, where you can't touch another human being, where you spend 23 hours alone in a tiny concrete box, food becomes everything. But here's the mystery we're going to uncover today. What does America feed the people it has decided to lock away forever? Is it punishment? Is it survival? Is it something else entirely? The answer might surprise you. The building looks like it doesn't belong on Earth. That's what people say when they first see it. ADX Florence sits in the high desert of Colorado, about 100 miles south of Denver. The Rocky Mountains rise in the distance, beautiful and majestic. But the prison itself? It looks like something from another planet. There are no windows you can see through, just thin slits in the concrete, placed so high and at such an angle that prisoners can only see a tiny rectangle of empty sky. Never the ground, never the mountains, just sky. The walls are made of reinforced concrete, poured so thick that nothing can break through. Each cell is soundproofed. The doors are solid steel, controlled remotely. Everything is designed for one purpose: complete isolation. This is a Supermax prison, the maximum of maximum security. When America's prison system has tried everything else and failed, this is where they send you. There are only about 400 prisoners here. 400 men, out of millions of prisoners in America. That's how rare it is to end up at ADX Florence. You have to be special, and not in a good way. Some names you might know are locked inside these walls. Terrorists who planned attacks on American soil. Gang leaders who ordered murders from inside other prisons. Men who killed guards with their bare hands. Each one is kept completely separate from the others, living in a cell the size of a small bathroom, 23 hours every single day. Even in this place, even with these men, America has rules, laws, standards that must be followed. And one of those standards is about food. Every prisoner in America, no matter how terrible their crime, must be fed with enough calories to survive, with enough nutrition to stay healthy. It's the law. So what does that actually mean at ADX Florence? If you're curious about what we're going to uncover in this investigation, hit that subscribe button right now and drop a comment below telling us. What do you think they feed prisoners at America's harshest prison? Your guesses might shock you when you see the truth. Let's start with the basics. Because before we can understand the mystery of ADX Florence food, we need to understand how prison food works everywhere in America. The Federal Bureau of Prisons, the agency that runs ADX Florence, has strict rules. Every prison must follow something called the National Menu. It's a rotating schedule of meals designed by nutritionists to meet specific requirements. Here's what the law says. Every prisoner must receive at least 2,000 to 3,000 calories per day. The food must contain protein, carbohydrates, vitamins, and minerals. It must offer variety. It cannot be used as punishment. You cannot starve a prisoner. You cannot feed them only bread and water. You cannot give them spoiled food or disgusting combinations meant to make them suffer. Even if they've done terrible things, food cannot be used to torture them. Why? Because America's Constitution forbids cruel and unusual punishment. Courts have ruled over and over that this includes food. Prisoners must eat like human beings. But here's where it gets complicated. Here's where ADX Florence becomes different. In a normal prison, hundreds or thousands of inmates eat together in a cafeteria. They line up, get their trays, sit at tables, and eat as a group. There's variety. There's choice sometimes. At ADX Florence, none of that exists. Remember, these prisoners are in complete isolation. They never leave their cells except for 1 hour of recreation. They cannot gather in groups. They cannot sit at tables together. They cannot see each other while eating. So how do they get food? The answer is simple, but when you really think about it, it reveals everything about what life is like in this place. The food comes through a slot in the door. That's it. A narrow opening in the solid steel door. 3 times a day, a guard approaches the cell. The prisoner stands back, away from the door, hands visible. The guard slides a tray through the slot. The prisoner takes it. The slot closes. No conversation. No interaction. Just the sound of metal on metal, a tray appearing, and then silence again. The prisoner eats alone, in their tiny cell, sitting on their bed or at a small metal desk bolted to the wall. When they're done, they slide the empty tray back through the slot. It disappears, and they wait for the next meal. Every single day, for years, for decades. Some prisoners have been at ADX Florence for over 20 years. Imagine eating every meal like this for 20 years. But what's actually on that tray? That's the question we're here to answer. The Federal Bureau of Prisons publishes its national menu online. Anyone can look at it. It's a public document because taxpayers pay for prison food. The menu rotates on a 5-week cycle. That means every 5 weeks, the same meals repeat. Week 1 looks like week 6. Week 2 looks like week 7. Ever wondered what the most dangerous men in America eat for dinner? Let's take a look inside ADX Florence, the country's most secure Supermax prison. On paper, the menu seems balanced. For a typical Monday breakfast, inmates get fruit, hot oatmeal, whole wheat bread, milk, and coffee. Lunch might be a chicken patty sandwich with rice and beans. Dinner could be roast beef with mashed potatoes and green beans. It sounds okay, right? A complete diet with protein, veggies, and grains. But the official menu is only half the story. Here's what's missing: choice, seasoning, temperature. That hot oatmeal, by the time it travels through the prison's maze of corridors and security checks, it's often lukewarm. That roast beef, it might arrive cool and congealed. Everything is controlled, timed, and scheduled. And then there's the quality. The Federal Bureau of Prisons operates on a very tight budget. To feed hundreds of thousands of people, they buy in bulk and they buy cheap. This means low-grade meat, canned or frozen vegetables, and fruit that's seen better days. Again, it's not illegal. As long as the calories and nutrients are there, the rules are met. But imagine eating food like this for every single meal, every single day, for years, even decades. Presentation? Forget about it. Everything is served on a standard plastic tray, often mixed together. The gravy seeps into the beans. The fruit juice soaks the bread. It's a mush. The food arrives through a slot in the cell door, and you have about 30 minutes to eat with a plastic spork before the tray is taken back. Let's look at another day. Monday, week 2. Breakfast is rubbery scrambled eggs and soft potatoes in a bland gravy. Lunch is a thin, gray-brown hamburger patty on a bun, with canned baked beans and mayonnaise-heavy macaroni salad. Dinner is pepper steak strips in a brown sauce, with unseasoned black beans and boiled carrots. You eat it all, because what else is there to do? This cycle repeats. The menu changes, but the experience doesn't. Fish sticks, spaghetti, tacos, it all comes on the same tray, at the same temperature, in the same solitary silence. Psychologically, food becomes the highlight of the day, not because it's good, but because it breaks the crushing monotony of 23-hour-a-day lockdown. The arrival of a meal tray is an event. It marks time. The Bureau of Prisons understands this. They know food is more than just fuel here. It's a psychological tool. So they walk a fine line. The question isn't just about what these prisoners deserve. It's about what our society deems humane. Even for the worst of the worst, food is a fundamental part of that equation. If you found this interesting, don't forget to like and subscribe for more deep dives. Ever wonder what the most dangerous men in America eat for dinner? We're going inside ADX Florence, the nation's toughest Supermax prison, to uncover the hidden world of food behind bars. And what we found is more shocking and more complex than you can possibly imagine. On paper, the menu at ADX Florence seems surprisingly varied. A 5-week rotating schedule means prisoners technically get more variety than many people on the outside who eat the same breakfast every single day. The official reason? Nutrition. A varied diet ensures they get all the necessary vitamins and minerals. But there's another, unspoken reason. Variety prevents despair. Imagine eating the exact same meal, in the exact same tiny cell, every single day for years. It would break something fundamental in the human mind. So, the menu changes. It provides the smallest sense that time is passing, that today is not exactly the same as yesterday. It's a strange kind of mercy. Or maybe it's just practical. Desperate prisoners are harder to control. Broken prisoners are more expensive to manage. Prisoners notice this. They know what day it is by the meal they get. They count down to their favorite meals and dread the bad ones. Even in the worst circumstances, people find ways to care about the small things. But the trays of institutional food are only half the story. The real secret lies in something called commissary. Prisoners with money in their accounts can buy extra food: ramen noodles, tuna, peanut butter, crackers, candy bars, instant coffee. This money usually comes from family on the outside. And for those who have it, the food experience is completely transformed. They can add flavor to bland meals. They can make their own creations. They can have snacks. This creates a class system. Let's imagine two prisoners in identical cells. Prisoner A has no money. He eats only the 3 meals that come through the food slot. No choices, no snacks, just institutional food for years. Prisoner B has commissary money. He can add hot sauce to his meals. He can make prison pizza with crushed crackers, cheese spread, and sausage. He can have coffee whenever he wants. Same prison, same isolation, but completely different food realities. The prison allows this because it's an incentive for good behavior. Break the rules, and you lose commissary privileges. But it also creates a deep inequality. Then there are religious and medical diets. The prison is required by law to provide halal, kosher, or vegetarian meals if requested, but they do the bare minimum. A Muslim prisoner might get chicken instead of pork, but the rest of the bland meal is the same. It's just enough to avoid a lawsuit. It reveals the core philosophy of ADX. Do what is legally required, but absolutely nothing more. So what does this all tell us? Food at ADX Florence is a tool of control. You eat what they give you when they give it to you. But it's also a strange form of humanity. They could feed these men gruel, but they don't. They walk a fine line between punishment and torture. But that's not where the story ends. What prisoners do with their food is even more fascinating. It becomes currency. It becomes art. It becomes a way to reclaim a tiny piece of their own lives. Even in total isolation, they find ways to trade. A guy who doesn't drink coffee might trade his packets for cookies from another cell, shouting through vents or passing notes. They also become chefs. Using hot water from their sink, they make spread, a mix of crushed ramen, chips, and sausage. They make prison cake from cookies and hot chocolate mix. It's not about gourmet cooking. It's about creating something that is theirs. It's an act of defiance, a way to maintain sanity. They hoard items to create their own special occasions, like a coffee festival day. Of course, there's a darker side. Some refuse to eat. It's one of the last forms of protest available when you have nothing left. You can't hurt anyone. You can't destroy anything. But you can refuse to cooperate with the one thing the prison needs you to do to survive. And who prepares this food? Not other prisoners. At ADX, civilian staff cook everything. They follow the menu precisely, but there's no passion, no extra effort. They know who they're cooking for, and their job is to meet the minimum standard. The food is exactly what it's required to be, nothing more, nothing less. So what's the big picture? Food at ADX is a battlefield. It's where the system exerts total control, but it's also where the human spirit refuses to be completely crushed. In a place designed to be the end of the line, the simple act of eating tells a powerful story about justice, cruelty, and the will to survive. What do you think? Should prisoners at ADX have better food, or is it exactly what they deserve? Let me know in the comments. And if you found this fascinating, make sure to subscribe because we're just getting started. Thanks for watching. 3 times a day, guards push food carts through the corridors of ADX Florence, sliding trays through slots in the cell doors. For some guards, this is the most dangerous part of their day. The open slot is a moment of vulnerability. A prisoner could throw something, reach out, cause trouble. But for other guards, it's the most human part of their day, because everyone has to eat. In that moment, it's just one person giving food to another, a basic human act in the most inhuman of places. This is where it gets really interesting. For prisoners isolated for years, food becomes memory. An inmate might eat chicken lo mein and be transported back to a childhood memory of Chinese takeout. The institutional food is a pale imitation, but the memory it triggers is precious, a lifeline to a world outside. Thanksgiving is especially tough. The prison serves turkey, but eating it alone on a plastic tray only highlights what's been lost: family, laughter, connection. For some, it's the saddest day of the year. For others, at least the food is different, a small break in the endless monotony. This psychological power of food is why the prison system serves special holiday meals. Is it kindness, manipulation, or just policy? Maybe it's all three. But the story doesn't end there. Let's talk about health. Officially, the meals meet all nutritional guidelines. But the reality is a diet of overcooked, processed foods with very little freshness. This is practical for a high-security prison, but over decades, it takes a toll. Dental problems are common because the food is so soft. And while the meals are portion-controlled, inmates with access to commissary snacks like chips and ramen can gain significant weight, with very little opportunity to burn it off. So, what do prisoners at ADX Florence really eat? The technical answer is a 5-week rotating menu. But the real answer is so much more. They eat isolation. They eat control. They eat memory. Food at ADX is never just food. It's a reflection of a system trying to balance punishment with humanity. It's a daily reminder of what it means to be alive when everything else has been stripped away. The trays keep sliding through the slots, day after day, a constant cycle that tells us as much about ourselves as it does about the people locked inside. Not every prisoner at ADX Florence has family who still cares. Many have been disowned. Many have been locked up so long their parents have passed away, their siblings have moved on, and their children have grown up without them. But for those who still have family, food becomes one of the only ways left to show love. Remember the commissary, where prisoners can buy snacks. The money for that comes almost entirely from family members. For a mother, a sister, or a child on the outside, putting $50 or $100 into that account means their loved one can get ramen, coffee, cookies, or tuna. It means small comforts. It means eating something they actually enjoy, instead of just eating to survive. It's one of the only ways to help. You can't visit much. Visitation is extremely limited, non-contact, through glass. You can't send packages, but you can send commissary money. You can know that your loved one, no matter how terrible their crime, is eating something a little better. Some families do this religiously, every month, like clockwork, even when they're struggling themselves. Because it's food. And food is love. Food is care. It's the most primal way we show connection. This brings up a tough question, one that's been hovering over this entire investigation. Do these prisoners deserve better food? The answer really depends on what you believe prison is for. If you think prison is purely for punishment, then no. They should get just enough to stay alive and nothing more. Every bit of flavor is more than they gave their victims. But if you believe prison is for rehabilitation, then maybe they do deserve better. Because degrading people doesn't heal them. Suffering doesn't teach. And even the worst among us might have a spark of humanity worth preserving. American law says no cruel and unusual punishment, and courts have ruled that means adequate food. But adequate is a very low bar. And at ADX Florence, the food is calibrated to hit that bar exactly. Not below it, to avoid lawsuits. Not above it, to avoid criticism. Is this justice? The trays sliding through the slots don't answer that, but they force us to ask. Here's something fascinating. Holidays at ADX Florence have special meaning, almost entirely because of the food. On Thanksgiving, they get turkey, stuffing, and pumpkin pie. On Christmas, it's ham or a special chicken dish. On the 4th of July, maybe hamburgers and potato salad. These meals are still mass-produced, still served on plastic trays, and eaten alone in a cell. But they're different. And different matters immensely when every single day is exactly the same. Former prisoners say these holiday meals are a mix of gratitude and sadness. Grateful for better food, but sad because it's a powerful reminder of holidays with family, with freedom, with joy. One former inmate wrote that his Thanksgiving meal was one of the hardest things he experienced, eating real turkey while hearing other prisoners shout, "Happy Thanksgiving," through the vents, knowing his family was somewhere else, together. These meals are a small acknowledgement that even here, these are still human beings. A turkey dinner doesn't undo a terrible crime, but it says you're still human enough to mark time. Here's a twist you might not expect. A few prisoners from ADX Florence have actually been released. And when they get out, one of the first things they talk about is food. They describe being overwhelmed by a restaurant menu, paralyzed in the grocery store aisle by the sheer variety of fresh fruit and bread. They talk about cooking a simple meal for themselves and just crying. Crying because after years of total control by someone else, they can finally choose. They can add salt. They can decide when the eggs are done. One man said the first meal he had as a free man was just scrambled eggs he made himself, but he wept while cooking them. That control, that choice, it broke him in the best way. This reveals the real punishment of the food at ADX isn't that it's bad. It's that it's controlled. The real deprivation isn't calories, it's agency. Taking that away is how you lose something fundamental about being human. So, does any of this matter? There are only about 400 prisoners at ADX Florence. Why should we care what they eat? Here's why. How we treat people at their absolute worst, at their most deserving of punishment, is what defines us as a civilization. We can't undo their crimes, but we can control our response. When we provide adequate nutrition, we're saying we don't use starvation as punishment. When we offer holiday meals, we're saying you're still part of human culture, even if you're separated from society. These aren't acts of kindness for the prisoners. They are acts of definition for us. It's how we prove we are different from the people we lock away, that we can be harsh without being cruel. Food is the daily test of that principle. 3 times a day. And how we handle that test matters. Not for them, for us. Thanks for watching. If you found this thought-provoking, consider subscribing for more deep dives.